Toledo is the fourth most populous city in the U.S. state of Ohio after Cincinnati, Cleveland and Columbus, and it is the county seat of Lucas County. Toledo is in northwest Ohio, at the western end of Lake Erie, and borders the state of Michigan. The city was founded by United States citizens in 1833 on the west bank of the Maumee River, and originally incorporated as part of Monroe County, Michigan Territory. It was refounded in 1837, after conclusion of the Toledo War, when it was incorporated in Ohio. After construction of the Miami and Erie Canal, Toledo grew quickly. It also benefited from its position on the railway line between New York City and Chicago. It has since become a city well known for its art community, auto assembly, education, healthcare, and local sports teams. The city also became known for its glass industry, which earned it the nickname, the Glass City. The population of Toledo as of the 2010 census update was 287,208, making it the 67th largest city in the United States. The Toledo metropolitan area had a population of 651,429, and was the sixth largest metropolitan area in the state of Ohio, behind Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, Cleveland, Columbus, Dayton, and Akron. History. Varying cultures of indigenous peoples lived along the rivers and lakefront of what is now northwestern Ohio for thousands of years. When the city of Toledo was preparing to pave its streets, it surveyed two prehistoric semicircular earthworks, presumably for stockades. One was at the intersection of Clayton and Oliver Streets on the south bank of Swan Creek. The other was at the intersection of Fassett and Fort Streets on the right bank of the Maumee River. Such earthworks were typical of mound-building peoples. This region was part of a larger area controlled by the historic tribes of the Wyandot and the people of the Council of Three Fires, Potawatomi and Odawa. The first European to visit the area was Étienne Brulé, a French-Canadian guide and explorer, in 1615. The French established trading posts in the area by 1680 to take advantage of the lucrative fur trade. The Odawa moved from Manitoulin Island in the Bruce Peninsula at the invitation of the French, who established a trading post at Fort Detroit, about 60 miles to the north. They settled an area extending into northwest Ohio. By the early 18th century, the Odawa occupied areas along most of the Maumee River to its mouth. They served as middlemen between the French and tribes further to the west and north. The Wyandot occupied central Ohio, and the Shawnee and Lenape occupied the southern areas. United States period. The area was not settled by Americans from the United States until 1795 and after. After the conclusion of the American Revolutionary War, the regional tribes allied in the Western Confederacy, fighting a series of battles in what became known as the Northwest Indian War in an effort to repulse American settlers from the country west of the Appalachians and north of the Ohio River. They were finally defeated in 1794 at the Battle of Fallen Timbers. This loose affiliation of tribes included the Wyandot and Council of Three Fires. By a treaty in 1795, they ceded large areas of territory in Ohio to the United States, opening lands for European-American settlement. According to Charles E. Slocum, the American military built Fort Industry at the mouth of the Maumee about 1805, but as a temporary stockade. No official reports support the 19th century tradition of its earlier history there. The United States continued to work to extinguish land claims of Native Americans. In the Treaty of Detroit, the above four tribes ceded a large land area to the United States of what became southeastern Michigan and northwestern Ohio, to the mouth of the Maumee River. Reserves for the Odawa were set aside in northwestern Ohio for a limited period of time. The Native Americans signed the treaty at Detroit, Michigan on November 17, 1807, with William Hull, governor of the Michigan Territory and superintendent of Indian Affairs, as the sole representative of the U.S. More European American settlers entered the area over the next few years, but many fled during the War of 1812, when British forces raided the area with their Indian allies. Resettlement began around 1818 after a Cincinnati syndicate purchased a 974-acre tract at the mouth of Swan Creek and named it Port Lawrence, developing it as the modern downtown area of Toledo. Immediately to the north of that, another syndicate founded the town of Vistula, the historic North End. These two towns physically bordered each other with Cherry Street dividing them. This is why present-day streets on the northeast side of Cherry Street run at a slightly different angle from those to the southwest of it. 19th century. In 1824, the Ohio State Legislature authorized the construction of the Miami and Erie Canal and later its Wabash and Erie Canal extension. In 1833, the canal's purpose was to connect the city of Cincinnati to Lake Erie for water transportation to eastern markets, including to New York City via the Erie Canal and Hudson River. At that time no highways had been built in the state, and it was very difficult for goods produced locally to reach the larger markets east of the Appalachian Mountains. During the canal's planning phase, many small towns along the northern shores of Maumee River heavily competed to be the ending terminus of the canal, knowing it would give them a profitable status. The towns of Port Lawrence and Vistula merged in 1833 to better compete against the upriver towns of Waterville, Maumee, and Manhattan. The inhabitants of this joint settlement chose the name Toledo, but the reason for this choice is buried in a welter of legends. One recounts that Washington Irving, who was traveling in Spain at the time, suggested the name to his brother, a local resident. This explanation ignores the fact that Irving returned to the United States in 1832. Others award the honor to To Stickney, son of the major who quaintly numbered his sons and named his daughters after states. The most popular version attributes the naming to Willard J. Daniels, a merchant, who reportedly suggested Toledo because it is easy to pronounce, is pleasant in sound, and there is no other city of that name on the American continent. Despite Toledo's efforts, the canal built the final terminus in Manhattan, 1/2 mile to the north of Toledo, because it was closer to Lake Erie. As a compromise, the state placed two side cuts before the terminus, one in Toledo at Swan Creek and another in Maumee, about 10 miles to the southwest. Among the numerous treaties made between the Ottawa and the United States were two signed in this area, at Miami Bay in 1831 and Maumee, Ohio, upriver of Toledo, in 1833. These actions were among U.S. purchases or exchanges of land in order to accomplish Indian removal of the Ottawa from areas wanted for European American settlement. The last of the Odawa did not leave this area until 1839, when Otoki, grandson of Pontiac, led his band from their village at the mouth of the Maumee River to Indian Territory in Kansas. An almost bloodless conflict between Ohio and the Michigan Territory, called the Toledo War, was fought over a narrow strip of land from the Indiana border to Lake Erie, now containing the city and the suburbs of Sylvania and Oregon, Ohio. The strip, which varied between 5 and 8 miles in width, was claimed by both the state of Ohio and the Michigan Territory due to conflicting legislation concerning the location of the Ohio-Michigan state line. Militias from both states were sent to the border but never engaged. The only casualty of the conflict was a Michigan deputy sheriff, stabbed in the leg with a penknife by To Stickney during the arrest of his elder brother. 1 Stickney, and the loss of 2 horses, 2 pigs and a few chickens stolen from an Ohio farm by lost members of the Michigan militia. In the end, the state of Ohio was awarded the land after the state of Michigan was given a larger portion of the Upper Peninsula in exchange. Stickney Avenue in Toledo is named for brothers 1 and 2 Stickney. Toledo was very slow to expand during its first 2 decades of settlement. The first lot was sold in the Port Lawrence section of the city in 1833. It held 1,205 persons in 1835, and 5 years later it had gained just 7 more persons. Settlers came and went quickly through Toledo, and between 1833 and 1836, ownership of land had changed so many times that none of the original parties remained in the town. The canal and its Toledo side cut entrance were completed in 1843. Soon after the canal was functional, the new canal boats had become too large to use the shallow waters at the terminus in Manhattan. More boats began using the Swan Creek side cut than its official terminus, quickly putting the Manhattan warehouses out of business and triggering a rush to move business to Toledo. Most of Manhattan's residents moved out by 1844. The 1850 census recorded Toledo as having 3,829 residents and Manhattan 541. The 1860 census shows Toledo with a population of 13,768 and Manhattan with 788. While the towns were only a mile apart, Toledo grew by 359% in 10 years. Manhattan's growth was on a small base and never competed, given the drawbacks of its lesser canal outlet. By the 1880s, Toledo expanded over the vacant streets of Manhattan and Tremainsville, a small town to the west. In the last half of the 19th century, railroads slowly began to replace canals as the major form of transportation. They were faster and had greater capacity. Toledo soon became a hub for several railroad companies and a hotspot for industries such as furniture producers, carriage makers, breweries, glass manufacturers, and others. Large immigrant populations came to the area, attracted by the many factory jobs available and the city's easy accessibility. By 1880, Toledo was one of the largest cities in Ohio and it added significant infrastructure from its thriving economy. 20th century to present, Toledo continued to expand in population and industry into the early 20th century. Because of its dependence on manufacturing, the city was hit hard by the Great Depression. Many large-scale WPA projects were constructed to re-employ citizens in the 1930s. Some of these include the amphitheater and aquarium at the Toledo Zoo and a major expansion to the Toledo Museum of Art. In 1940, the Census Bureau reported Toledo's population as 94.8% white and 5.2% black. The city rebounded, but the slump of American manufacturing in the second half of the 20th century during industrial restructuring cost many jobs. In addition, suburbanization and highway development drew more established middle-class people out of center cities for newer housing. By the time of the 1980s national recession, Toledo had a depressed economy. The destruction of many buildings downtown, along with several failed business ventures in housing in the core, led to a reverse city-suburb wealth problem common in small cities with land to spare. In recent years, downtown Toledo has supported significant redevelopment to draw residents back to the city. Fifth Third Field opened in 2002, and is ranked as one of the top minor league baseball stadiums and a popular family destination. The multi-purpose Huntington Center opened in 2009. It hosts the Toledo Walleye ECHL ice hockey team, and the Toledo Crush of the Legends Football League. It also is the site of live performances of musicians and bands, and World Wrestling Entertainment. Geography. Toledo is located at 41 degrees 39 minutes 56 seconds north, 83 degrees 34 minutes 31 seconds west, 41.66556 degrees north, 83.57528 degrees west, 41.66556 minus 83.57528. The city has a total area of 84.12 square miles, of which 80.69 square miles is land and 3.43 square miles is water. The city straddles the Maumee River at its mouth at the southern end of Maumee Bay, the westernmost inlet of Lake Erie. The city is located north of what had been the Great Black Swamp, giving rise to another nickname, Frog Town. Toledo sits within the borders of a sandy oak savanna called the Oak Openings region, an important ecological site that once comprised more than 300 square miles. Toledo is located within approximately 4 hours driving time of many large cities, including Detroit, Cleveland, Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis and Chicago. Cityscape. Neighborhoods and suburbs. The Old West End is a historic neighborhood of Victorian, arts and crafts, and other Edwardian-style houses. The historic district is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Beverly, Birmingham, DeVoe, Crossgates, 5 Points, Downtown, East Toledo, Franklin Park, Garfield, Harvard Terrace, Library Village, North Town, Old Orchard, Old West End, Old South End, Old Town, One Village, Onyx, Ottawa, Point Place, Reynolds Corners, Roosevelt, Scott Park, Secor Gardens, South Wyke, Wernitz Corner, Trilby, University Hills, Uptown, Warehouse District, Warren Sherman, Westgate, Westmoreland. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the Toledo metropolitan area covers 4 Ohio counties and combines with other micropolitan areas and counties for a combined statistical area. Some of what are now considered its suburbs in Ohio include Bowling Green, Holland, Lake Township, Maumee, Millbury, Monclova Township, Northwood, Oregon, Ottawa Hills, Perrysburg, Rossford, Springfield Township, Sylvania, Wildbridge, Waterville, White House, and Washington Township. Climate. Toledo, as with much of the Great Lakes region, has a humid continental climate, characterized by 4 distinct seasons. Both temperature and precipitation vary widely seasonally. Lake Erie moderates the climate somewhat, especially in late spring and fall, when air and water temperature differences are maximal. However, this effect is lessened in the winter by the fact that Lake Erie freezes over in most winters, coupled with prevailing winds that are often westerly. During the summer, southerly and westerly prevailing winds, combined with warm surface waters of Lake Erie, negate the lake's cooling effect. In addition, the lake increases local humidity, adding to discomfort on hot days. Summers are very warm and humid, with July averaging 73.5 degrees Fahrenheit and temperatures of 90 degrees Fahrenheit or more seen on 16.5 days. Winters are cold and somewhat snowy, with a January mean temperature of 25.5 degrees Fahrenheit, and lows at or below 0 degrees Fahrenheit on 6.2 nights. The spring and summer months tend to be wetter than autumn and winter. About 37 inches of snow falls per year, much less than the snowbelt cities, because of the prevailing wind direction. Temperature extremes have ranged from -20 degrees Fahrenheit on January 21, 1984 to 105 degrees Fahrenheit on July 14, 1936.